Hey everyone, it's Fallon. Today I'm going to be showing you all how to use Lightroom. This is just kind of a beginner tutorial. I'm not going to get into some super complex things that you can do in Lightroom, but I'm just going to kind of show you guys the gist. So when you first pull up Lightroom, if you need to import photos, which of course you will at some point, you're going to hit import and then choose wherever the source is coming, the pictures are coming from. So you can either import it from a desktop or a folder or a memory card, whichever you prefer. So I already have some pictures here that I'm going to be working with today for this video. So when you're ready to edit, you're going to head over to the Develop tab. And I'm not going to be using any presets today. I'm just going to kind of edit these directly from the tab over here. So first, over here, I'm going to kind of show you around, if that may show you around, like it's my house. Anyways, so there's little tabs over here. Usually I start with the basic tab. I'm going to keep these all, I guess, up so it doesn't confuse you, and I'll just go through each tab as I move around in Lightroom. So first, the basic tab is going to be where you change your temperature and the tint of the photo, and pretty much just what that means is if you don't want your photo to be super warm or super cold, depending on the lighting situation, etc., you can change the warmth and the temperature. Well, the warmth is the temperature, but the warmness or the coolness of the photo here. So in this case, for this photo, I think I want it to be a little bit cooler. It was during the sunset, so maybe I'll keep it a little bit warm. That looks good to me. And then because there's already a lot of green in the photo, I'm just going to move it a little bit to the right to bring in those violet tones. Now the exposure is something just depending on the lighting setting, whether you want the picture to be less exposed depending on what kind of settings you're going to change, or more exposed. I definitely suggest going down a little bit. That's just what I do with my photos because it allows for a lot more editing and you don't really lose the data in the picture. So usually I'll bring my exposure down a little bit to make the colors pop a little more and when I move into other settings. And I also bring up my contrast just a little bit because I like that, I guess, that moody kind of feeling. And then the highlights, you don't want to mess with those too much. Usually I bring them down if anything, but I think for this photo, -7 is a good range. Alright, so next, the shadows. This is what's going to control like the different darker parts of your photo. So for this particular photo, I think I want to have my shadows a little bit, maybe -27 is good. I don't want to lose the texture of the ground or the bench. So I'll leave it like that. The whites I don't really mess with too much because changing that honestly just kind of makes the picture look a little less realistic in my opinion. If you make too many subtle changes, or too many changes I should say, you want to make subtle changes. That's the key to editing in Lightroom. The blacks I don't really mess with those either because I don't want most parts of my picture to be blacked out too much, or the tones or in colors to be taken away. Next, we're going to move into presence, which I add a little bit of clarity. This is just going to make your picture look a little bit more clear. It's going to make textures pop more. It's going to make the image look more present, in my opinion. Vibrance and saturation, I don't touch until after I've messed with the tone curve and the color in my photo. So I skipped tone curve for now because I want to make adjustments to my colors. So pretty much what this allows you to do is it allows you to change whatever colors in your photo that you don't necessarily like the tone or the hue, I should say, or the saturation amount. So for example, if I wanted to make my skin look a little bit darker, I could take down the luminance, or if I wanted to make it a little bit lighter, I could take it up. I really kind of just leave it to how it to how my skin tone is. You can take it a little bit away because it's also controlling other wow, hey email. It's also controlling other colors in the photo. Like for example, the bench and my face are similar colors, so you want to be careful when you're changing certain colors, because it can also change more than just one part of your picture. So I like that. Maybe I'll bring the saturation up a little bit more. And then the hue is fine. I don't want to really change the hue of my face. The highlights are usually going to be, when you're changing the color of highlights, usually that tone is going to be yellow. So if you want less or more of the yellow color highlight, depending on, you know, what I just completely messed that up. So you can change, usually your yellow color is going to be the color of your highlights as well. So I like to kind of brighten up my yellow a little bit. I usually bring up the luminance a lot actually, and I'll maybe like desaturate it a little bit just so those highlights in my picture are more bright but also not too yellow. Also, we're working with green in this picture, so I kind of like to, if there's plants in my photos, which a lot of times there are, I love plants, I'll bring the saturation up to make that green pop a little more. Sometimes I'll bring the luminance down or up, just depending on how I want the plants to look. And in this case, I'll just bring it up to about 56. What other colors? So we have a little bit of red in this photo as well. I'm going to bring down that because it's kind of controlling the color of my lips. I like that look of like having a little bit of color on my lips. Don't want it to look plain or whatever. Alright, so now the tone curve. So the tone curve, you can also make adjustments using these toggle buttons, but I prefer making a tone curve first and then moving to the toggle switches to make the adjustments how I want them. So pretty much first, this is going to mess with your shadows. So you can control how dark your shadows are, how bright they are. In this particular photo, I kind of want to bring them down a little bit. I think that's good. And then for the light colors, this is going to control how bright the lights are in your photo. So in this case, I don't want it to be too much, so I'm going to bring it down just a tad. I think that's good where it was. And then next is going to be your highlights, and this is going to control how bright your highlights are and how bright they aren't. So in this case, I want to bring it up there. I think that's good. It shows the highlight on my nose, on my hands, and on the plant. It shows the light is directly coming in right here on my face, so I think that looks pretty nice. One thing I may do is go back and maybe desaturate the orange a little bit because it's kind of making my face look a little bit too orange, so that's better. Alright, next, split toning. I don't really mess with this. What this is if you want to change the hue of your highlights, like for example, this is making my highlights blue. You can also desaturate it a little bit so it's not as like crazy, but I don't really mess with this as much because I kind of want my photos to look how they were taken. So I don't really mess with split toning. You can do the same thing with the shadows. Just really depends on how you want your photo to look and if you want a certain theme or whatever it is. Detail, I do mess with this. I add a little bit of sharpening to my photo. Not too much because I don't want it to look too hard, I guess, if that makes sense. So sometimes I'll zoom in on my photo just to see how sharp it looks. I think that's pretty good. Looks really nice. And then I'll add sometimes a little bit of luminance because to me it just really smooths out the image without flattening it, and it still looks pretty good. Alright, I don't mess with lens correction. That's just kind of if you have a certain camera which does a lot of vignetting. Like I know, for example, the Canon lens, the 16 to 35 millimeter 1.4, that will do a lot of vignetting in certain light situations. So sometimes you can use the lens correction to remove that dark circle around your images. In my case, I don't really want to mess with that with this photo. Now, the transform is what's going to allow you to move the photo around, kind of change the perspective, make your legs look longer, that type of thing. Sometimes I like to change the vertical nature of the photo just to kind of give it more presence and make it look more forward. It also kind of lengthens my legs, and I like that look as well, so I do that in my photos often. Also, if you're cropping a picture for Instagram in Lightroom, you want to make sure the dimensions are 4:5/8x10, and that will make sure that your image fits directly in the Instagram dimensions needed in order to post a long photo. Alright, so I kind of like how that looks. I want to maybe not do the vertical change in this photo. I'll just leave it like that. Alright, that looks good. Sometimes I like to do the auto as well, because then sometimes it just honestly does better than manually changing the position of the photo. And in the effects tab, I only mess with dehaze and grain in these. I haven't really done much with the post-crop vignetting. I really don't like when vignetting my photos. So I like using dehaze though, because to me it just makes the photo look more realistic. It kind of brings out the tones more, the textures. It just kind of makes everything look like you're standing right there, in my opinion. In this case, I'm not going to add grain to my photo, and I think for this photo that looks pretty good. I'm going to show you all the before and after. If you want to see before and after your photos, you can also keep it up while you're editing. You just go to view, before and after, and then left, right, or however you want to see it. And this is the before and after images of the edit. So next I'm going to move to a different lighting situation. This is some street photography I took a little bit ago. Oh, I don't like that one. I didn't know they were blurring that. Okay, let's move to this one. And I'm going to take away the before and after just so we can really focus on one image for right now. Sorry, my computer is moving a little bit slow. Alright, so I'm going to go to view, before and after, and then take off the left and right. Yeah, she's still kind of blurry in that too, but that's okay. We're just going to mess with it. So, the temperature in this, I kind of like, I think that's good right there. Tint, gonna mess with that again. Don't want it to be too green or too violet. The exposure, I'm going to bring that down just a tad. Contrast up just a bit. Highlights. I think that's good. Let's see. Yeah. You want to make sure that when you're changing highlights and shadows that you're not losing any particular places of your photo. For example, this sky brightness over here is kind of bothering me, so if I want to change that, I can use a graduated filter to make... sorry guys. Went a little crazy there. So the graduated filter will pretty much just change whatever you want in a certain area instead of the entire picture. So I'm going to move this over here and maybe bring down the exposure, maybe. Yeah, see how that kind of brings some texture back into the sky. You don't want it to be too much. Maybe the exposure isn't the best thing to change. You can change maybe bring down the whites a little bit, and that'll give you some more, especially just particularly in this photo. I just kind of want to make sure the sky doesn't lose any of its texture. I'm going to use dehaze a little bit just to kind of make it a little bit more present. Alright, I think that's good. I don't like it as much, but hey, I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm just going to show you guys the basic things that you can do in Lightroom. So I'm going to crop this just a tad. Maybe I'll take the sky out a little bit. I don't like that cropping. Alright, and now we're going to move to clarity. So I'm going to bring up some clarity in this photo. And I'm liking what I see for right now. Color, I really don't want to mess with that just because it's like kind of a street photo. I don't want to change too much that's going on in this photo. Maybe I will just bring down the yellows a bit and take away some of that yellow color. Yeah, that looks a lot better. And maybe the blue I will brighten up a little bit and bring the saturation back. Okay, I think that looks good. Detail, it's already pretty sharpened in my opinion. I think that looks pretty good. Luminance maybe just about 3, 4. Like I said, we won't use lens correction. I just don't use it. Many people do, but I just choose not to. And I'm going to see what the auto does for the position, and I think that looks pretty good. And effects, dehaze, maybe just a tad. You don't want it to be too much. And that's it for this photo. And now I will show you the before and after again. I'm going to go to view, before, after, left and right. And this is the before and after. Alright, that's all I have for you all today. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and hit the like button and let me know down below what else you would like to see from me. I'm thinking about doing a vacation photo Lightroom tutorial, so if you'd like to see that, just let me know. And thank you so much for watching. See you guys later. Bye.